Welcome to the Making Tax Digital, your top questions answered. And so we are joined by Tafana, who is the Senior Product Manager here at Intuit. And we are joined by James, who is the Head of Sales at Hammock. And today we're going to be going through all things Making Tax Digital, how to remain compliant, and how to submit via QuickBooks, but also for landlords as well. So I'm going to head it over to you, Tafana.
Hi, everyone. So we're talking about making tax digital today. For those who don't know, and for the benefit of everyone else in background, currently we are live with Making Tax Digital as of 6th of April. For those who had income of over 50,000 in 24-25, you are now mandated to sign up to MTD. That threshold is reduced to 30K. So those who are above 30K in this current tax year will need to sign up for the next tax year. And those who are above £20,000 will need to sign up in the following tax year, which is 2029. Can we go to the next slide, please? So what are the requirements? You need to sign up to Making Tax Digital. So the first step is to do so on the HMRC website. You need to keep digital records. You need to use a MTD compatible accounting software such as QuickBooks. So you sign up to authorize QuickBooks after you've signed up to HMRC, to register with HMRC on their website. You're then required to send quarterly business income and expenses to HMRC through that software, in addition to what you would have previously submitted, which is a tax return, a single tax return in the previous year. You then finalize that with a self-assessment similar to what you've previously done, what they call the tax return, and you submit the final declaration to HMRC, letting them know that you're happy with the results, and you think the details are accurate. Next slide. What are we building for income tax? So QuickBooks currently operates your digital records and your accounting, and all of your tax prep will happen in QuickBooks. All of our SKUs have MTD functionality, so you can authorize all of our packages, all of our licenses for MTD income tax. For agents, you'll be able to manage all of your clients through QBOA currently, and through Intuit Accounting Suite, which is coming. And that is linked into the MTD tax service, which allows you to submit your quarterly updates and your final declaration. That is connected to HMRC via their APIs, which we've built specifically for this purpose. So let's take a closer look. What's the first step in this? So once you've registered your business or businesses, or as an accountant, you've registered your client's business or businesses with HMRC on their website, you then need to authorize your QuickBooks license for MTD. What it does is it provides a digital handshake. It allows QuickBooks to interact on your behalf, and it also checks that as an accountant or a bookkeeper that you are authorized to act on behalf of the client. What this does is it brings together multiple QuickBooks licenses. You'll be able to see all of the businesses that have been registered for a particular taxpayer in one space. You'll be able to prepare and send your quarterly updates. You'll be able to make an annual tax return, and then you'll be able to review throughout this process the calculations that HMRC calculate and send to us based on the data you have submitted. So let's have a closer look at that first step. So the first step is, we can move on, Elizabeth. The first step is the authorization flow. Next slide, please. So here you see in the income tax page, I have got all my accounts already authorized, so we will go through this here. Within the income tax page in any QuickBooks license, you will see a banner at the very top, which shows authorized QuickBooks for MTD income tax. If you click on authorized, it'll then take you to the next page, where it will ask you if you've already registered with HMRC. That is a prerequisite, otherwise this setup flow will fail. When you click on authorize QuickBooks, you then move forward. We then send you to the HMRC website once you click on continue to HMRC, where you can input your details. Now here, what you need to input if you are a direct customer submitting on your own behalf would be your personal details. As an accountant, you need to use your ASA login details. Otherwise, this will not work unless you're an accountant or bookkeeper who's also MTD obligated. In that case, you need to use your own personal login. Once you sign in, HMRC then requests that you give permission. So you authorize QuickBooks to interact with HMRC on your behalf. Once you click on give permission, you're then taken to the QuickBooks login page. Once this is successful, we've got your authorization for your client and/or you've given permission. It then tells you that's been successful. If it hasn't been successful for any reason, you'll get an error message here. But if you click next after this, you then move on to the third step, which is to input the customer or your national insurance number. And what that does is that looks up the HMRC record and checks which businesses you have registered. You click on continue setup. And here you will see you have a list of all your income sources that have been registered or businesses that have been registered for MTD. So you can see here you've got a self-employed, a UK property, and a foreign property. QuickBooks does some validation here with regards to the name, business name that you have, as well as your business type, just to ensure that you're linking the correct business. It also provides additional information with the NINO, which makes sure that you link the correct client to the QuickBooks license. Now, once you've validated all of that and you click next, it then asks you to choose your year basis, so your quarterly updates for your quarterly, so your accounting period type for your quarterly updates. If you've already submitted a quarterly update, you'll be locked into whatever you had previously chosen. However, if you have not submitted a quarterly update yet for the tax year that you're registered for, you'll have this option to choose. And then you click on complete setup. Now what happens is that you're all now set. You're connected to HMRC, you connected to your QuickBooks license is connected, and now you can use the functionality to send your updates. From here, I'll take you into the live environment. I have a live account, which shows you what that looks like in QuickBooks itself. I'm just logging in, just give me 1 second. Okay, and here we are. So this is an authorized account in QuickBooks. This is what you'll see as part of the income tax page. If you click, you can see your obligations here, but if you click on view and submit all obligations, it may ask me to log in. So if you bear with me while I do that. This shouldn't be the case in a live environment. You should be able to go right in. So this is our MTD experience. What this does is it pulls all of your obligations from HMRC. If you've had more than one licenses, QuickBooks licenses authorized, we use your NINO to be able to see both of your income sources. In this case, this person has got Conrad Consulting and their UK property business. Both have QuickBooks licenses. They've been authorized for HMRC. In addition to that, if you have a property business, either UK property or foreign, that doesn't have a QuickBooks license attached to it, you will also see, and it doesn't display here, but you will also see a line which shows a link to Hammock, who is our partner in this space, to be able to submit your property MTD obligations there as well. So for this customer, this particular account, you can see we've submitted 3 quarters. We still to submit the 4th, which is due in 5 days, so it's due on the 5th of May. We will go in and submit that. As you can see at the bottom as well, you can see a calculation. This is a test environment, so these figures have no particular meaning, but you can see there's a calculation based on the information HMRC has already received. And if I go and click on Send Update, this screen will allow you to submit not just one, but both of those income sources, the income and expenses for both of those at the same time. You can expand that and see the data that's included. You can click on these figures to see a transaction report of what's been included here. You can also click on the other one, and you can see the same. Now, you may notice that for the second income source, you now can use simplified reporting because the income is below the threshold, the VAT threshold. So you can send consolidated accounts for this particular account if you see fit. You can preview the mapping so you can see how your chart of accounts maps to the HMRC tax boxes, and we'll soon be releasing functionality to allow you to amend that. It's going to take a little bit to load. Perhaps for now we go back. Apologies. So you can click on one, none, or you can click on both, and you can send those to HMRC once you're happy. The other thing is being able to see, you can send data up to the quarter, or you can send year-to-date data. So everything up until the tax year to date within the tax year. Additionally, for accountants, you have, there is functionality at the bottom to send this to a customer or a client to approve. They can do so via the QuickBooks mobile app once that approval has been sent. And you can download the CSV or the PDF and also be able to send that off to a client for approval, for example, or to download for your records. Once you're happy with the figures, you click on Submit to HMRC. It says HMRC has received your update. It should then reload. I'll reload the page. And it should show that obligation fulfilled. There seems to be some error with the HMRC APIs, sandbox APIs, so that is not showing, but it in reality and in the prod environment, this would show as updated. Once you're done with that and you've submitted your fourth quarter, as most of you would have done for 25-26 or thinking of doing, you then go to the tax return. This is the tax return flow, which we're constantly improving. The first step here is to look at the information that's already been submitted to HMRC. So you review, for example, your sole trader income. You might want to check and see what the details are. If you're happy with them, you can submit an adjustment here. Now, to note, this adjustment just updates HMRC. It does not update your accounting record. So it's useful for if you've already accounted for something, but it's not included. However, if you need to have the accounting record match with HMRC, we'd suggest you change the record, do your accounting, resubmit your fourth quarter, and then come into this process. Once you're happy with that, you click on Submit. So you click on Confirm, apologies. It marks it as complete. Some new functionality we've done, you can mark each card as either not started, in progress, or complete. We have additional enhancements coming where you will only see the cards that are relevant to you, not all of the cards. Currently, what you do is you fill out the cards for the additional income that are relevant to you. So as an example, looking at your employment income, if this particular taxpayer has employment income and we've exceeded the HMRC quota, give me 1 second. What it does is it pulls any data that's been filed already through RTI from the employer, if that's available. It allows you to either ignore it, change the numbers, or if you think something's missing, in this case, it hasn't pulled any employment through, you'll be able to add one. So you can add all of the details and click Submit. I won't do that now because that will break the API. Once you've completed all of your additional income sources, you then go to your final declaration card, click on Review. You will get a calculation. So it will show you all of the data that you currently have with HMRC and what that calculation is based on. So in this case, you see your pay and pensions, you see your allowances allocated. And again, this is test data from HMRC, so it doesn't tally, but you see all of the data, all of your tax suffered, etc., and you'll have a figure for your tax due. You can save that. There will be an approval flow coming up for this. Click on Confirm, and once you click on the declaration, which is the final declaration, which is the final part of the tax return, click on Confirm, and it will submit your tax return. So that's the overview of the functionality within QuickBooks. I'll just double check whether this is now updated. It hasn't just yet, but ultimately it should update to show that those 4 quarters are submitted. What I usually suggest is that customers go into their HMRC portal within an hour to 24 hours afterwards and just double check that the submission has been is correct and it's been received on that end. HMRC don't send an email as they do for current self-assessment. So you need to do that if you want to have peace of mind that it's marked as fulfilled. Okay, that is the whistle stops tour of our functionality. I believe next we have James, who will be giving a demo of Hammock and how it solves for joint property, multi-property as well.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for QuickBooks for having me today. So yeah, for those who don't know me, my name's James and I'm the head of business development at Hammock. And I'm going to take you through a quick demo of how we solve for the property part, the landlord side of Making Tax Digital. So I'm just going to share my screen and just check that that's coming through. Okay, so hopefully you can all see my screen. So I know we've got a mix of landlords and accountants on this session. So for the accountants on here, please note that just like in QuickBooks, you will have your own dashboard where you can access all of your clients. But what we are looking at right now is within the client account. But actually saying that everything I'm going to do, I am going to do as the accountant. But this is exactly what your landlord clients will see if they're on Hammock. I'm going to start you off on the properties page, because one of the first things your landlords will do if they're using Hammock is they will add their properties and they will add their tenancies from here. And what the account we're looking at here is a client of mine called Mike Casson. And you can see Mike's got 3 properties here. And if we scroll down, we've got the 3 properties. When Mike adds those properties, the pictures just get pulled in from Google Street View just to make it look nice. Unfortunately, they do not help you with your MTD submissions. But you can see we can start, actually, if we look at the tax year for 25-26, where we've got a bit more data, you can see that we start seeing how much money we're making on each of our properties. But where these figures come from and where the bookkeeping happens is over here on the transaction page. So I'm going to take you over there, show you kind of how that works, and then we'll come back and talk a bit more about how this feeds through to here and then how we get to our MTD submissions. So we're going to jump to the transaction page now. And I say this is where the bookkeeping takes place. For most of our landlords who use Hammock, they would be doing so using a live bank feed, which means they're connecting up their bank account or multiple bank accounts. You can connect as many as you need to. That pulls through all of your transactions, and then you can start doing the bookkeeping. But you can also get transactions in via CSV import. So if you'd rather upload transactions via a spreadsheet rather than connect a live feed, you can absolutely do that. And it's probably also worth noting that Hammock is designed knowing that a lot of landlords don't have a dedicated bank account for their properties. So the way Hammock works is on day one, Hammock assumes all of your transactions are personal, and then you just need to categorize the stuff that relates to your property. So you can see here, Mike's got Tesco and Amazon. These are likely personal transactions, and so they're not categorized. Whereas here we've got some landlord insurance or some fixtures and fittings. So the landlords can choose to categorize the stuff that relates to their properties. But I want to show you a couple of examples of how the bookkeeping actually works. And obviously you can see it, you can already see that Mike's got his 3 properties in here. And I'm just going to track some rent on 2 of them, where one of them is a tenant that pays directly, and then the other one where we use a letting agent. And obviously the big difference there is that the money that hits Mike's bank account is going to be net of fees. Okay, we're going to start with the first one, and what we want to do is we want to find those transactions from a tenant called Tom Butland. And you could just scroll through and try and find it, or you could use these filters at the top. And that's what I'm going to do. And actually the filter I find the most useful is the keyword search, because if I search for the word Butland, because Tom, like a lot of tenants, puts his name in the reference, it means when I search for the name Butland, it brings up all of Tom's rents automatically. And you can see just looking at these transactions that it looks like Tom is paying £1,100 a month. And actually, if we scroll down, you'll also notice that Mike, the landlord, he has decided to start his bank feed last April, so the start of the last tax year. So he's going back a year. You can go back up to 3 years. It's totally up to you. If you want to choose, you could choose April 25. You could even choose April 26. But in our case, we've got a year's worth of transactions we need to track. And so all we're going to do is just start by clicking on any one of these. So we're just going to click on this February payment. Right? It doesn't matter which one you start with. Once you click on that, box pops up on the right-hand side with all our income categories. So if this was a tenant deposit, we could use this one. If it was any furnished holiday let income, we could use this one. But we're going to use rental income in this case. We're just going to tell the system that that's a rent payment. Then we just say which property it relates to, which is 25 New Church Road, and which tenant, which is Tom. And we click save. So it's really, really easy to do the bookkeeping and track a single transaction. But obviously, I don't really want to have to click on every single one of these transactions one at a time, right? So once you've categorized one of them, under the box that you've just used, if you just scroll down ever so slightly, you'll see this option here, search and track. And when you click search and track, what happens is all the other transactions in your feed have a little tick box, which you could either tick one at a time, or in my case, I'm just going to use the select all button. And then we can update all 13 of those transactions as rent for 25 New Church Road and for Tom. So it's really, really easy to track backwards. Even better than that, now that the system knows what Tom's rent looks like, because we tracked some of them, Hammock has learned that now. So next month, when Tom's rent comes in, it will just track itself automatically. And that goes for any of your regular expenses. So the truth is, once you've got your account up and running, an awful lot of your bookkeeping will just take place automatically. And then obviously you can just click on those one-off expenses and do the bookkeeping for those yourself. But there is one type of transaction that's slightly different, okay? And that is those letting agent payments. Because if you're getting paid by an agent, most of the time they're going to be taking their fees before they transfer the money across, and sometimes other deductions as well, right? So the difference isn't anything we're going to do on this screen. So even for this other tenancy I'm going to show you, we're going to click all the same buttons, because the difference comes when you add the tenancy into Hammock in the first place. Okay, so with Tom, the one we just tracked, when I set up that tenancy in Hammock, I just told the system that he lived at 25 New Church Road, that he pays $1,100 a month, and that I collect the rent myself. Okay, really simple. With Mary, the one we're going to look at now, when I've added her tenancy, I just told the system that she lives at 141 Corn Street. She pays $1,200 a month, and then I've said I use a letting agent to collect the rent, and they charge 10%. So it's built into the tenancy. So now if we find that payment from my agent, and I'm going to use the date filter here. I'm going to go back to March because this is the payment from my agent moving on. And you can see what's happened here is Mary's paid her £1,200. The agent's taken their 10%, and this is what I get left with. So but from here, it's exactly what we did with Tom. We just click on the transaction. We categorize it as rent. We tell the system which property it was for, which is Corn Street, the tenant Mary, but obviously that tenant has already been set up knowing that the rent is $1,200 and the fee is 10%. So when we save that transaction, Hammock knows to split that automatically for me. So it seems to be taking a little bit longer than normal. But yeah, it takes that transaction because it knows I use an agent. It just splits it for me into what it really represents, which is $1,200 of rental income and 120 of agent fees. And again, without me knowing, I've sort of created that rule now. So any month moving forward, where my agent pays me that normal amount, it's going to recognize it, it's going to track it and split it all automatically. Which means with your agent payments, the only time you probably really need to get involved manually is those few months a year where there are additional expenses. And I'll show you what I mean. Because if we jump forward to April, because in April, this is the payment from moving on, but I didn't get 1,080 because I had some repairs on the property. So that came out of the payment as well. So this will not track itself. Okay, I do need to do something here. But all we do is the same thing we've just done twice before. We click on it. We tell the system that it's a rent payment, that it's for Corn Street, that it's for Mary, except this time Hammock pops up with a really handy message just telling me that that's actually less than the system is expecting, because it's expecting 1,080 for Mary. And then it just asks me, would you like to create an expense for that difference? And obviously I can see from my statement that I had some repairs. So yes, I would like to create an expense. You just pick the expense category, which in our case is going to be something within maintenance. Obviously within maintenance, you've got all kinds of things in here, everything tailored for landlords. We're going to go with repairs, right? And so when we save that transaction, Hammock still splits it out for me, but this time it splits it 3 ways into rent, fees, repairs. And in terms of the bookkeeping, that's kind of all you need to do, right? A lot of this is going to automate once you've set it up. Anything that isn't, you just need to click on it and categorize. Once you've categorized anything, if you want to, you can add notes, you can add receipts. You can also even add in manual transactions. So if you have stuff that happens outside of the bank feed, anything you've paid for in cash, you can just click here and add it manually. But look, that's just a quick whiz through the bookkeeping. Hopefully you can kind of see how this is going to work. But now if I go back to the properties page, I want to now show you how that data is feeding through. So again, I'm going to go back to 25, 26, because there'll be a bit more data here. So that is where these numbers have come from that I showed you before. And because we're tracking income and expenses to particular properties, it means landlords get what they want. They get to see how much money they're actually making per property. It will also track if any of their tenants are in arrears, right? These are really interesting and useful pieces of information as a landlord. But I think one of the key challenges for MTD, and certainly one of the main reasons that QuickBooks have partnered with us, is because one of those challenges is that a lot of landlords don't own all of their properties in just their own name, right? And in this instance, we've got a landlord called Mike, and Mike is exactly like that. He's got his 3 properties here, but these 3 properties actually belong to Mike and his wife Mary. Okay. And even more complicated than that, each of these three properties is owned slightly differently, right? But the good news is in Hammock, you can set up a portfolio for every different ownership structure. And so then all you need to do is connect each property to the correct portfolio. So what we've got here, this first property is owned 50-50 between Mike and his wife. So I've created a portfolio called joint ownership, and I've just put those ownership percentages. So any transaction that we track to Corn Street, half of that transaction is going to go to Mike, half's going to go to Mary. 25 New Church, though, that is just owned by Mike. So that portfolio, Mike, is owned 100% by him, and anything here will go for Mike. But then 27 Swallow Coast is only owned by his wife, right? So even though this is Mike's account, Mike can still invite Mary as a co-owner on the account, and this portfolio and this property is solely hers. So essentially, we've got 2 landlords here. They're married, but they're 2 landlords, and they own 1.5 properties each, but all managed through a single account. So which means that when Mike and Mary or their accountant go into the tax area, Hammock is going to give them a tax statement for each of them. And again, I'll go back to 25, 26. So we've got a bit more information here. Now, both of these are completely independent. So if both Mike and Mary are in MTD this year, they can both connect and they can both submit through this same license. In my case, what I've actually got is Mike is in this year because he's over 50K. Mary's not going to be until next year because she's going to be over 30K. So we've connected Mike's, and that's why he's got the MTD icon. Mary's, we're still going to have her tax statement there. We're still going to have all the figures we need for her annual return. And then next year, we can connect hers as well and start submitting both of them. But for Mike, not only is Mike in MTD, he also joined the pilot, the testing year. So he's actually in MTD for 25, 26. So we're going to go in and I'll show you what those submissions look like. So we're just going to click into view details. So if you go into a client's tax statement that is connected to HMRC, you will see these 2 boxes at the top. One that pulls in the income sources. So we support UK property and foreign property. We do not support self-employment. So that's where QuickBooks will come in. And if you've got a landlord who is also a sole trader, and the properties on Hammock, sole trades on QuickBooks, you can connect those 2 accounts together now, so you can flick really quickly between the 2 and make those submissions. And then on the right-hand side, you've got your obligations, which for Mike is obviously his UK property obligations. So I'm going to show you how that submission works in just a second, but I will just scroll down ever so slightly because I want to show you below essentially what you would see if you went into Mary's, where she's not connected to HMRC yet. And for Mary, all you would get is you just get the boxes on the normal SA 105, the UK property tax return. So all your bookkeeping is feeding through to the correct box for your annual self-assessment. Underneath, you've got all the transactions which are making up these totals. And so, all of this is clickable. So if you're wondering why Mike's got £780 in professional fees, you can just click on the box and this transaction list underneath will update. Straight away, you can see they're just the agent fees. And actually, you can tell pretty quickly just by looking at this must be the joint property because all of those transactions are £120, but Mike's split of that transaction is only £60, right? So you can sort of see how that's working. So that's kind of the old world, how people have used Hammock for the last 7 years just to get your annual figures. But this is the new world up here. This is where we're going to make those quarterly submissions. So if I wanted to submit for Mike for Q4, all I would do is just click here, review and submit. This takes us through to our Q4 submission. Obviously, these quarters are cumulative. So even though it's called Q4, we're actually looking at the entire year, April to April. And just like Tafana was saying, in Hammock, equally, you can choose calendar dates or standard dates. And Mike has obviously chosen standard here. But instead of the last view where I showed you like boxes, this is just a table. But other than that, it's pretty similar, right? These are your income and expense categories that you need to submit. These are the total numbers that you need to submit, and you can click on any of these if you want to, again, get that breakdown and do a review. You can also click here if you want to do a consolidated 3-line submission. But once you are happy, all you need to do is just click the submit quarterly update button, and that will fire that off to HMRC, and then you've hit that obligation. And obviously you're just going to repeat that process every 3 months, and you can press that button as the landlord, or your accountant can do it on your behalf if you've authorized them. And I know I said Mary's not in MTD this year, but let's pretend she was, and she also had the MTD icon here. Then as the accountant, I could equally, once I've submitted for Mike, I could then just go into Mary's tax statement and repeat that same process. So look, that's everything I kind of wanted to cover today, because we're obviously a bit short on time, but I just wanted to highlight there is a QR code on the screen. Now that is for if you are an accountant or a landlord, in fact, who would like more information on Hammock and to understand, maybe book some time or get some pricing. Scan that QR code, and there's a form you can fill in which will send your details to us, and we'll be in touch. If you are a landlord specifically, because that form is actually built for accountants, so if you are a landlord, under company name just write landlord, and then I'll make sure it goes through to the correct team. But accountants, obviously, just put your own details in. So look, I'm sure there'll be some questions in the Q&A, and I'll be here to help for that, but for now I'm going to pass back to Liz and Tafana.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to also add Tafana to the stage too, as we will start to go through some of the top asked questions. But I do see that there is a question currently in the chat. So it's a question saying, once we've done the year end, the prepayment and accrual will be posting using new tax date. Will these journal be picked up and submitted in the final submission?
Oh, yeah, can you hear me? Sorry, yeah. So I saw that question from Emily. So it won't be picked up in the new tax year. Only transactions within your specific tax year get picked up. So you'd have to post this at the year end to be able to include that in the tax year. If you have any adjustments for the tax year itself, you'd have to do those journals, resubmit Q4, and then proceed into your tax return.
Amazing. I guess another question that is one of our top asked questions is, I guess, how do I connect QuickBooks to HMRC and submit the quarterly updates, and would I lose my data?
So I did demo the flow. So you'd go into QuickBooks, you go into the income tax page, you click on the authorize button and follow that flow. There is no migration, there is no moving across anywhere, so your data is maintained. So your existing accounting doesn't matter. You'll be able to use your existing accounting and submit your quarterly update. So there's no loss of data happening. It's the same license, you're just authorizing it for MTD.
Amazing. Someone asked, do I need my accountant to manage MTD, or can I do it myself? We've been asked this question quite a few times.
Yeah, it's up to personal preference. There majority of those who registered for MTD do have an accountant. I think it's about 65%, but there's nothing stopping you from doing it yourself as well. If you get stuck, you can always use, for example, the Pro Advisor section in QuickBooks to find an accountant if you need to do so. You're also free at any time to link an accountant, invite an accountant to help you complete the MTD flow.
This question is, again, another recurring question. So I have a complex income setup. So a landlord, multiple properties, joint ownership, sole trader, and rental. Does MTD apply to me, and can QuickBooks handle it?
MTD does apply. It just depends on your share of the income as to whether you're above the threshold and when you need to register. We have partnered with Hammock for situations like that, as James demoed. Joint property, multi-property are there in their wheelhouse. So we've partnered with Hammock to be able to do that. If you also have a self-employed income, you will also need a QuickBooks license, and that's where you'll be able to see the deep link to switch between Hammock and QuickBooks.
Amazing. A question that did come in was, will the partner of an LLP be liable if he receives rental income?
That's a very technical question. Limited companies, so partnerships are not in scope for MTD currently. There is no date. So I don't think that applies here. But if they email us with additional detail, we can perhaps direct them to where they can get further information.
I guess what happens if you simply just don't comply?
That would depend on HMRC. I don't know what HMRC's I guess remediation plans are. Currently, current tax year, there are no penalties in the first tax year for missing a submission, but I'm not sure what HMRC's plans are in terms of penalizing those who don't register when they need to register. You'd need to contact HMRC and sort that out, I think.
No, thank you. And we had some questions coming as well. I have a landlord with 2 sources of UK property income. Have many QuickBooks licenses would I need to submit MTD updates? One source is a commercial let, for which proceeds are split 3 ways, and the other is 100% owned by one individual.
Yeah, in this scenario, we'd recommend Hammock because you'd need approximately 5 licenses for QuickBooks to be able to do that. You need a license per taxpayer and per and for the property, but per taxpayer. Hammock does this really well. Within one license, you can have joint ownership. James, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can have multiple owners, and you can submit obligations for each one of those in a single license.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in Hammock, that is just a single license. So the way Hammock pricing works, there is no impact on pricing for additional owners. The only thing that affects the price of a Hammock license is just the number of properties within that license. But it doesn't matter if it's 1 owner, 3 owners, 10 owners.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And so someone's asked again, where the rental portfolio of a married couple has rents greater than 50,000, but they are returned on their tax return separately and show less than 50,000 each, do they need to make quarterly returns each?
I can take that one, Tafana. So when it comes to landlords specifically, and where there are joint ownerships or mixed ownership, it is only each individual's percentage of that income. So if you've got a husband and wife who own the properties 50-50, let's just make the simplest example, their joint combined income on that portfolio would have to be over £100,000 for each of them individually to be over £50,000. So whoever asked that question, just calculate the income per owner, and if one of them is over 50k, they're in this year. If it's over 30k, next year, 20k the year after.
Amazing. Thank you for answering that. And another question was, what exactly I think this has been answered, but it's always good to, I guess, refresh on what exactly do I need to submit each quarter, and what counts as a digital record? Okay.
Your digital record is either the accounting done in software. Excel sheets also count as digital record, in which case you'll need to use a bridging software. There can't be any manual input. It has to be a direct link and mapping to that software. So that is your digital record. So your day-to-day accounting, basically. What was the other part of the question? Apologies.
What exactly do I need to submit?
Yeah. So it's your trading income and your trading expenses, and that's split out by HMRC categories. So you need to submit that detail if you are above the 90k threshold. If you're below the threshold, you can choose to give them all of the breakdown, or you can choose 3-line accounting where that's appropriate in QuickBooks.
Amazing. And someone asked, where can they find the actual deadlines and penalties?
The HMRC website is a good place to start. They do have an MTD section where it shows all the deadlines. Penalties, I think, is also in there, and also the final details as to standard versus calendar year, quarters, etc. HMRC web has guidance, and I think they're releasing new guidance in a couple of weeks as well on the MTD in general.
Amazing. I think the last question is QuickBooks MTD submission still in beta?
No. So everyone is currently, as of 6th of April, it's currently live. The beta ended on the 5th of April. So all service providers, all taxpayers are currently now in live version of MTD. So there's no beta, there's no pilot currently.
Amazing. I think those are all the questions that I've seen come through. We'll just give it a second or so for if there's any other questions to come through. But lastly, just wanted to say a huge thank you and a huge apology to everyone who had difficulties in joining the stream, and thank you to everyone who did join the stream. A huge thank you to James as well for joining and sharing on Hammock, and to Stefana for walking us through. This has been recorded and it will be posted on our community, within the QuickBooks community, as well as sent through email, and it will also live on our YouTube. So a huge thank you to